The perfume hit me first. Delicate, floral, definitely not mine. It clung to Jake's gray cashmere scarf as I helped him pack for what he claimed was another last-minute business trip. My fingers lingered on the soft fabric, and something inside me shifted. That quiet voice I'd been ignoring for months finally refused to be silenced. "You're sure you can't reschedule?" I asked, keeping my tone light as I folded the scarf with precise movements. "The Morrison case goes to trial next week, and I could really use you at the celebration dinner." Jake's shoulders tensed slightly before he turned, flashing that smile that had first made me fall for him at the courthouse 3 years ago. "Sorry, Sophia. This deal could make or break the quarter. You know how Grant gets about these things." I did know. I also knew Grant's assistant would have mentioned any major deals during our weekly tennis match. She hadn't. "Of course," I said, watching Jake zip his carry-on with practiced efficiency. "Will you be back for Sunday brunch with Caroline? She's bringing that lemon cake you love." "Should be." He checked his watch, the new one I didn't remember him buying. "Uber's probably waiting. Love you." The kiss he pressed to my forehead felt like muscle memory. Then he was gone, leaving me alone in our bedroom with its crisp white linens and carefully curated artwork. Everything in its proper place, except for that lingering scent of flowers that didn't belong. I waited exactly 17 minutes before opening his laptop. The password hadn't changed since our wedding day. The date we met, plus his mother's maiden name. Amateur move for someone with so much to hide. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled up his browser history. Nothing suspicious in the recent searches, but the autofill on his flight bookings told a different story. 3 trips to Boston in the past 2 months, when he'd told me he was in Chicago. "Damn it, Jake," I whispered, the words tasting bitter. Part of me wanted to stop right there, to close the laptop and pretend I'd never looked. The larger part, the part that had fought my way from a scholarship kid to making partner at 35, needed to know everything. I called Marin while downloading his credit card statements. "Please tell me you're not still at the office," she answered. "I need a favor." My voice sounded strange, distant. "Remember that PI you used during your divorce?" A pause. "Sophia? What's going on?" Jake's scarf smelled like perfume. "He's flying to Boston instead of Chicago. I need to know." "Shit." Marin's voice softened. "I'll text you his number, but are you sure you want to go down this road?" I stared at the credit card statement on my screen. Charges from a jewelry store I'd never heard of. A hotel reservation. Restaurant bills for 2. Each transaction felt like a small betrayal, building into something I couldn't ignore. "I'm already on it," I said. "The question is how far it goes." After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness of our home office, surrounded by framed photos of our life together. Jake and me on our honeymoon in Greece, at his firm's Christmas party, building sandcastles with my niece last summer. Each memory now felt like evidence in a case I never wanted to prosecute. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake. "Made it to Chicago. Meeting running late. Don't wait up." I opened my tracking app, the one we'd installed to share locations during business trips. His blue dot pulsed steadily over Boston Logan International Airport. The laugh that escaped my throat sounded nothing like me. 3 years of marriage, of building a life together, and he couldn't even be bothered to disable location sharing before lying to my face. My fingers moved automatically, taking screenshots, downloading statements, documenting everything with the same methodical precision I applied to my cases. The lawyer in me knew what came next, gathering evidence, building an airtight case, preparing for confrontation. But the woman who had woken up this morning believing in her marriage just wanted to scream. Instead, I opened a new browser tab and searched for flights to Boston. If Jake thought he could play this game without consequences, he was about to learn exactly who he'd married. I might not have known about the perfume or the secret trips, but I knew myself. And Sofia Rodriguez didn't lose cases, especially ones this personal. The confirmation email for my morning flight landed in my inbox just as another text from Jake arrived. "Sweet dreams. Beautiful. See you soon." I closed his laptop. My hands steady now. "Oh, you'll see me sooner than you think." The scarf still lay on the bed where I'd folded it. that foreign floral scent now a challenge rather than a question. I picked it up, wrapped it around my neck, and began to pack. I hadn't planned to knock on her door. The plan was surveillance only. Watch Jake's movements, gather evidence, build my case. But standing in the crisp Boston morning, staring at the cheerful yellow Victorian with its perfectly tended garden, something snapped inside me. The woman who opened the door could have been my sister. Dark hair, warm smile, professional dress that screamed successful but approachable. She looked exactly like someone Jake would choose. "Can I help you?" she asked, adjusting her blazer. I hope so. My voice came out steadier than I felt. "I'm looking for Jake Harvey." Her smile widened. "Oh, you must be from the office. Jake's just finishing up a call. Please come in. I'm Isabella." Of course her name would be Isabella. Of course she'd invite me in without hesitation. Of course her home would smell like fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls. Domestic perfection wrapped in hardwood floors and exposed beams. "Would you like some coffee?" she asked, leading me into a sun-filled kitchen. Jake always says I make it too strong, but I refuse to compromise. The laugh that escaped me must have sounded strange because she turned, really looking at me for the first time. I saw the moment recognition flickered in her eyes. Not of who I was, but that something wasn't right. "I'm sorry," she said slowly. "How did you say you know Jake?" "I'm his wife." The words hung between us like shattered glass. "But apparently, so are you." Isabella's coffee mug hit the counter with a sharp crack. He's not." She pressed her hand to her mouth. "Oh, God." "How long?" I asked, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. 2 years. Her voice was barely a whisper. "We met at a conference. He said he was divorced. Of course he did." I pulled out my phone, showed her our wedding photos, watched her face crumble as she scrolled through evidence of a life she hadn't known existed. "I'm going to be sick," she said, and she looked it. "All this time, I never suspected. That's what makes him good at it." I sank into one of her kitchen chairs, suddenly exhausted. The confidence, the explanations that almost make sense, the way he makes you feel like you're the only person who really understands him. The front door opened. Your car's still here. Aren't you late for court?" Jake's voice, so familiar it hurt, froze us both in place. His footsteps approached the kitchen, and I watched Isabella's face cycle through panic, anger, and something like resolve. "In here," she called out, her voice breaking slightly. He appeared in the doorway, already talking. "I thought we agreed you'd take it easy this week, with the baby and—" The word hit me like a physical blow. Baby. I looked at Isabella again, really looked, and noticed what I'd missed before. The slight curve beneath her fitted dress, the prenatal vitamins on the counter, the ultrasound photo on the fridge. Jake's voice died as he saw me. For once in his life, he had nothing to say. "The baby," I repeated, the words tasting like ash. "Congratulations, Jake. When were you planning to tell your other wife about becoming a father?" Isabella made a sound somewhere between a sob and a laugh. "Other wife. God, I'm going to be sick again." "Sophia," Jake started, taking a step forward. "I can explain—" "Can you?" I stood up, my lawyer voice taking over. "Can you explain the bigamy? The fraud? The fact that you're about to have a child with a woman who doesn't even know who you really are?" "It's not that simple," he said, and for a moment I saw genuine fear in his eyes. "There are things you don't understand." "Like what?" Isabella's voice cut through his excuses. "Like how you told me your family was dead? Like how every business trip to Chicago was actually to your other life? Please, Jake, explain what we don't understand." He looked between us, calculating. I recognized that expression. He was running scenarios, looking for an angle, a way to spin this. "Both of you need to listen." "No," I said quietly. "We don't. But you need to listen very carefully to what happens next." I turned to Isabella, whose hands were protectively curved around her stomach. "I assume you'll want to contact your lawyer. I have some documents you should see first. Jake moved to block the doorway. Think about what you're doing, Sophia. Think about your career, your reputation. Move, Isabella said with such venom that he actually stepped back. Get out of my house before I call the police. As he retreated, I caught a whiff of that floral perfume. Isabella's perfume. The scent that had started all this barely 24 hours ago. I met her eyes across the kitchen. We need to talk. The hotel bar was too quiet for the conversation we were about to have. Isabella sat across from me, her water untouched, fingers tracing the edge of the manila envelope I'd placed between us. There's more? She asked, not quite meeting my eyes. Bank statements. Property records. I kept my voice low, professional. Jake's been moving money around for months. Large transfers to offshore accounts, all carefully structured to avoid detection. Of course he has. She finally looked up, and I saw my own anger reflected in her expression. Because being a bigamist wasn't enough. He had to be a thief too. The thing is, I leaned forward, some of these transfers are in your name. Your signature. The color drained from her face. That's not possible. I know. I pulled out the key document, a transfer authorization with her forged signature. He's been setting you up as his fall person. If anything goes wrong, the paper trail leads to you. Her hand moved instinctively to her stomach. The baby is exactly why we need to move carefully. I signaled the waiter for more water, buying time to choose my next words. Jake's not just hiding money. He's hiding something bigger, and I think his partner Grant knows what it is. My phone buzzed. Speaking of Grant. The text made my stomach clench. Need to discuss Jake's situation. My office. Tomorrow. Non-negotiable. What is it? Isabella asked, watching my expression. Complications. I tucked the phone away. Listen, I know this is overwhelming, but we need to... Ms. Rodriguez? A voice interrupted, professional but urgent. I turned to find a man in a dark suit, badge already extended. Detective Morris, could you come with me? We have some questions about Jake Harvey. My heart stopped, then started again double time. Regarding? Financial irregularities at his firm. We're investigating potential fraud. Isabella's eyes met mine, panic clear in them. Everything was moving too fast, spinning out of control. I'll need my lawyer present, I said automatically. Of course. His smile didn't reach his eyes. But you might want to cooperate. Your husband's partner is being very forthcoming. Grant, that bastard was trying to get ahead of this. Give me a moment, I asked the detective, then turned to Isabella. Go home. Don't talk to anyone. Not Jake, not the police, no one. I'll have my friend Marin contact you. She's a lawyer who specializes in cases like this. Sophia. She caught my arm as I stood. Be careful. If he could lie about this, what else is he capable of? The question haunted me through the police interview. I gave them nothing, letting Ellie, who'd dropped everything to represent me, deflect their questions. But watching the detective lay out evidence of Jake's schemes, I realized how blind I'd been. Your client's signature appears on several key documents, Morris said, sliding photos across the table. My client is a victim here, Ellie countered smoothly, and potentially a valuable witness if you're interested in the real perpetrators. The dance continued for hours. When we finally emerged, the sun had set, and my carefully constructed plan lay in ruins. They're building a case against him, Ellie said as we walked to her car. But Grant's trying to pin everything on you and Isabella. Jake's been laying this groundwork for months. Years, I corrected, remembering Isabella's timeline. He's been playing all of us for years. Ellie grabbed my arm, forcing me to stop. Sophia, listen to me. You need to think like a lawyer now, not a wronged wife. One wrong move and you could lose everything. Your career, your freedom, everything we've worked for. I know. But even as I said it, my phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. Found something in Jake's office. Need to meet tonight. Don't do anything stupid, Ellie warned, reading my expression. Whatever you're thinking, I'm thinking I need to get ahead of this. I hugged her quickly. Thank you for today. I'll be careful, I promise. But as I drove toward Isabella's house, my mind raced through possibilities. What had she found? What was Jake really hiding? And why did Grant seem so eager to talk tomorrow? My phone buzzed again. Jake this time. We need to talk. I can explain everything. I deleted his message without responding. The time for explanations was over. Now it was time for action, even if that meant risking everything. Isabella's house was dark when I arrived, except for a single light in the upstairs office. As I approached the front door, that familiar floral scent drifted down. But this time, it didn't make me angry. It made me afraid. The front door wasn't locked. My heart pounded as I pushed it open, calling out softly, "Isabella?" Silence answered. The house felt wrong. Too still. Too quiet. Papers scattered across the kitchen table caught my eye. Financial documents, letters, what looked like passport copies. Evidence of a life built on lies, laid bare under the harsh kitchen lights. Up here. Isabella's voice drifted down from the office, tight with something I couldn't identify. Relief flooded through me, followed immediately by fresh tension. Something wasn't right. I climbed the stairs slowly, my phone gripped tight in my hand. The office door stood half open, warm light spilling into the hallway. As I reached for the handle, a familiar voice froze me in place. Come in, Sophia. Let's all talk this through like adults. Grant. My stomach dropped as I pushed the door open. He sat behind Jake's desk like he owned it, Isabella rigid in a chair across from him. No signs of violence, but his smile carried enough threat to make my skin crawl. Lovely of you to join us, he said, gesturing to the empty chair beside Isabella. We were just discussing Jake's creative accounting. Isabella's eyes met mine, silently screaming a warning I couldn't quite decode. I remained standing. Where's Jake? I asked. Dealing with some unfortunate legal matters. Grant's smile widened. But the real question is, what are we going to do about this mess you ladies have uncovered? We? I kept my voice steady. The police seem very interested in your role in all this. Ah, yes, Detective Morris. He leaned back, completely at ease. Nice man. Very receptive to the evidence I provided about Jake's wives helping him embezzle millions. Quite a story. The trusted partner discovering such betrayal. Isabella made a small sound. I stepped closer to her, finally seeing what lay on the desk. Documents showing both our signatures on massive wire transfers, dates going back months. All forged, all perfectly damning. What do you want? I asked, though I already knew. Smart girl. Grant stood, his genial mask slipping. Jake got sloppy, started skimming more than his share, thought he could play both sides. But this? He gestured at the papers. This is cleanup, and you two are loose ends. We're also lawyers, I reminded him, with friends in very interesting places. Yes, about that. He pulled out his phone, showing us an email draft. This goes to the Bar Association SEC and every major news outlet in an hour. 2 wives, both lawyers, helping their husband defraud investors. Career ending at best, prison at worst. He looked at Isabella. Especially difficult with a baby on the way. My mind raced. Grant was smart, but he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd shown his hand too early. I pulled out my own phone, making sure he saw me press record. So you're admitting to orchestrating the fraud? To framing us? I asked clearly. He laughed. Nice try, but that recording won't help if you're both arrested tonight. Police are already on their way. Anonymous tip about suspicious documents being destroyed. Isabella stood suddenly, one hand on her stomach. I think something's wrong with the baby. Grant's composure cracked for just a moment. Sit down. You're not going anywhere until... The sound of breaking glass downstairs cut him off. Heavy footsteps followed, along with a familiar voice. Police! Upstairs. Everything happened at once. Grant lunged for the documents, but Isabella was faster, sweeping them into her arms and backing toward the window. I grabbed her elbow, pulling her behind me as Grant reached for her. "Touch her and I'll throw you down those stairs myself," I said, just as Detective Morris appeared in the doorway, weapon drawn. "Everyone freeze!" Grant recovered instantly, hands raised. "Thank God you're here. I caught them destroying evidence. Actually," Morris cut him off, "we're here because Ms. Rodriguez's office surveillance footage shows you planting documents on her desk last night. The same documents you just tried to use as blackmail." The look of pure shock on Grant's face was almost worth everything we'd been through. Almost. As they let him out in handcuffs, Isabella sagged against me. "How did you know?" "I didn't. I helped her to a chair. But Marin had her PI watching Grant since this morning. When he came here, she called Morris." "And Jake?" "In custody since this afternoon." I squeezed her hand. But Grant was the real threat. Jake was just a convenient fool. She laughed shakily. "A fool who married 2 lawyers and thought he'd get away with it. Speaking of that," I pulled out my phone again, showing her an email from my private investigator. "There might be more of us. 3 credit cards registered to addresses in Seattle." Isabella's eyes hardened. "How soon can you be ready to fly?" I thought about my career, about the scandal this would cause, about all the safe, sensible reasons to walk away now. Then I thought about other women out there, living Jake's lies. "I'll book the tickets," I said. "We have some sisters to find." Seattle rain drummed against the rental car windows as Isabella and I watched the modest craftsman house across the street. According to my PI, this was where Michelle lived. Wife number 3, if we were counting. "You're sure about this?" Isabella asked, absently rubbing her belly. "We could just send the police." I checked my phone again. Still no response from Ellie to my texts explaining my impromptu cross-country trip. My senior partner didn't appreciate being ghosted during a major case. "She deserves to hear it from us," I said. "Not from some detective reading charges." Before Isabella could respond, the front door opened. A woman emerged, wrestling with an umbrella. Even from this distance, I could see why Jake had chosen her. The same dark hair, similar build. He definitely had a type. "Ready?" I asked, but Isabella was already opening her door. We caught up to Michelle at her car. "Excuse me," I called out. "We need to talk about Jake Harvey." She turned, umbrella tilting. Recognition flickered across her face as she looked at us. Not of who we were, but of what we represented. Women in professional dress, serious expressions, unexpected visitors. Never good news. "Whatever he's done," she said quietly, "I can't help you. I haven't seen him in months." "Because he told you he was traveling for work?" Isabella stepped forward. "Chicago, maybe? Or Boston?" Michelle's face went pale. "Who are you?" "I'm his wife," I said. "So am I," Isabella added. Michelle's umbrella clattered to the ground. No, that's not. We're divorced." He showed me the papers. "Forged," I said gently. "Like the investment documents he had you sign. The offshore accounts in your name." She swayed slightly. "How did you—" "Because he did the same to us." Isabella retrieved the fallen umbrella. "And now the FBI is involved. We came to warn you." Michelle's laugh held no humor. "Warn me? I'm an accountant. I did his taxes, handled our joint accounts." Her eyes widened with realization. "Oh God, I could lose my license, my freedom." "Not if you help us," I said. "We're building a case, with 3 of us coming forward." "3 of us," she repeated numbly. "How did none of us know?" A car door slammed nearby, making us all jump. A man in a dark suit was approaching, and my instincts screamed danger. "Inside," Michelle said suddenly, fumbling with her keys. "Now." We barely made it through her door before the man reached the porch. Michelle locked the deadbolt, then led us through a living room filled with half-packed boxes to her kitchen. "Jake's brother Marcus," she explained, peeking through the curtains. He shows up sometimes asking questions, says he's worried about Jake, but Jake's an only child, Isabella and I said simultaneously. Michelle's face hardened. That lying. She grabbed her laptop from the counter. I kept records. Transactions that didn't make sense. Calls from numbers that disappeared. I thought I was being paranoid, but a heavy knock at the front door made us freeze. Michelle? Marcus's voice carried clearly. We need to talk about Jake. She typed furiously, then turned the screen toward us. My breath caught. Account numbers, dates, amounts. All matching the patterns we'd found, but going back years before either of my marriage. This isn't just fraud, I whispered. This is organized crime. Another knock, harder this time. I know you're in there, and I know you have company. Isabella's hand found mine, squeezing tight. What do we do? I looked at Michelle's evidence. Thought about Jake's careful selection of wives with useful professional skills. Remembered Grant's desperate attempt to silence us. We weren't just victims. We were unwitting accomplices in something much bigger. We do what lawyers do, I said, pulling out my phone. We build an airtight case. I dialed Ellie's number, but first we get back up. He'll break down the door, Michelle warned. Let him try. I put the phone on speaker just as Ellie answered. Hey, remember that favor you owe me? I need it now. And bring Detective Morris. Marcus kept knocking as I quickly explained our situation. With each bang, Michelle's evidence painted a clearer picture of what we were really dealing with. This wasn't just about Jake's betrayal anymore. It was about dismantling whatever criminal enterprise he'd built using our names, our credentials, our lives. They're on their way, I told the others. But we have maybe 20 minutes. Then let's use them, Isabella said, pulling out her own phone. I have access to Jake's cloud storage. If we combine that with Michelle's records. The pounding stopped suddenly. Through the silence, we heard a car engine start. He's leaving, Michelle reported, then turned to us with steel in her eyes. So what's our next move? I looked at these women, strangers bound by betrayal, professionals whose skills had been weaponized against them. We stop playing defense, I said, and we start fighting back. The evidence spread across Ellie's conference room table told a story so twisted, I almost wished we hadn't uncovered it. Shell companies, forged documents, a network of criminal enterprises all hidden behind legitimate businesses. And at the center of it all, 3 wives unknowingly providing legal, financial, and accounting expertise. They used us as human shields, Michelle said, highlighting another suspicious transfer. Any investigation would lead straight to us. Isabella pressed her hands against her lower back, exhaustion clear on her face. We'd been at this for hours, fueled by coffee and righteous anger. The question is, who's really running things? Jake's not smart enough for this. No, I agreed, studying a photo from Jake's cloud drive. But Marcus is. The image showed Jake's supposed brother at a charity gala 2 years ago, standing beside a group of men whose names appeared repeatedly in Michelle's records. The same men whose companies had received millions in laundered funds. Detective Morris is coordinating with the FBI, Ellie said, hanging up her phone. They're moving tonight, but Sophia... She caught my eye. They want you to wear a wire. Meet with Jake. My stomach clenched. He's out on bail? As of an hour ago. He's been calling your office all morning. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Jake's message was simple. Please, one chance to explain. The Hawthorne Hotel Bar, 8 p.m. It's a trap, Isabella said immediately. Marcus was watching Michelle's house. They know we're working together. Which means they're desperate. I picked up my phone. They need to know what we know. Or they need to silence us before we can testify, Michelle pointed out. I'm not loving these odds. The FBI will have the place surrounded, Ellie assured us. But Sophia, you don't have to do this. We have enough evidence without... Yes, I do. I stood, gathering my coat. Because Jake's not just going to tell me about the money. He's going to tell me about Marcus, about the whole operation. He still thinks he can talk his way out of anything. Isabella grabbed my arm. You're not going alone. Actually, I managed a smile. I am. Because you're 6 months pregnant and Michelle needs to finish documenting those offshore accounts. And because you need to look vulnerable, Ellie finished. Like you're still the betrayed wife, not part of a coordinated investigation. 2 hours later, I sat at the Hawthorne's bar, trying to look appropriately devastated. The wire itched against my ribs, a constant reminder of what was at stake. Jake arrived exactly on time, sliding onto the stool beside me. He looked terrible. Expensive suit wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Good. Thank you for coming, he said softly. I know I don't deserve— Why her? I interrupted, staring into my untouched wine. Why, Isabella? He flinched. It's complicated. Then uncomplicate it. Explain to me why you married 3 women, set us all up to take the fall for your crimes, and— Lower your voice, he hissed, glancing around. You don't understand what you're dealing with. Then tell me. I finally looked at him, letting him see the tears I'd been holding back. Make me understand, Jake. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, at this sign of weakness. He leaned closer. Marcus. He's not really my brother. He's my handler. Has been since college. The marriages, the businesses, it was all part of the plan. Building a network of legitimate professionals who could unknowingly facilitate certain transactions. And what happens to those professionals when they outlive their usefulness? His face went blank. What? I pulled out my phone, showed him the photo we'd found buried in Michelle's records. A car accident report from 3 years ago. Another wife. Another city. Did you even know her name? Sophia, he whispered, real fear creeping into his voice. You need to stop digging, please, for your own safety. Mr. Harvey. Marcus appeared behind us, his smile never reaching his eyes. I believe we need to continue this conversation somewhere more private. I stood, letting my hand shake as I gathered my purse. I should go. Actually, Marcus placed a heavy hand on my shoulder. You should join us. We have so much to discuss. Jake's face had gone ashen. This wasn't part of his script, wasn't how he'd planned to handle me. Good. Because it was exactly what we'd planned for. Lead the way, I said quietly, following them toward the elevators. In my purse, my phone silently transmitted our location to Ellie, to Morris, to the teams waiting to move. Jake had chosen his wives carefully. Smart, capable women whose skills could serve his organization. Now those same skills would dismantle it, piece by carefully documented piece. The elevator doors closed behind us, and I caught Jake's eye in the mirrored wall. He still thought he was in control. Still thought he could talk his way out. He had no idea what was coming. The hotel suite was exactly what I expected. Expensive, impersonal, perfect for making someone disappear. Marcus gestured me toward a leather armchair while Jake hovered nervously by the wet bar. Drink? Marcus offered, all smooth hospitality. When I shook my head, he poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. You've caused quite a problem, Sophia. You and your sister wives. We prefer co-plaintiffs now, I said, watching Jake flinch at my tone. Marcus's laugh held no warmth. Always the lawyer. That's why Jake chose you, you know. That precise analytical mind. Very useful for our needs. Until it wasn't. Until it wasn't, he agreed. Jake, show her. Jake pulled out his phone, pulled up a video. My breath caught. Isabella and Michelle, filmed through Michelle's kitchen window just hours ago. A red dot of light danced across Isabella's pregnant belly as she worked at her laptop. Your friends are being watched, Marcus said quietly. One call from me and— He let the threat hang. The wire felt hot against my skin. I needed him to say more, to implicate himself clearly. What do you want? The evidence you've gathered, all of it, and your silence. Or what? You'll kill 3 prominent professionals? That won't look suspicious at all. Kill? Marcus looked genuinely offended. No, no, we're not monsters, but careers can be destroyed, reputations ruined. Pregnancies are delicate things, aren't they? So much can go wrong. My hands clenched in my lap. Jake, you're okay with this? He wouldn't meet my eyes. It's better than the alternative. The alternative being what? Justice? Prison? Or are you afraid of something else? I turned back to Marcus. Someone else? A flicker of uncertainty crossed Marcus's face. Good. He hadn't expected me to push back. The thing is, I continued, we've already turned over everything to the FBI. They're probably moving on your organization right now. This? I gestured around the room. This is just me wanting to see Jake's face when it all falls apart. Marcus moved faster than I expected, grabbing my arm and yanking me up. You're lying. Check your phone. He did, keeping his grip tight. His face darkened as messages flooded in. Raids in progress, assets frozen, arrests being made. You stupid bitch, he snarled, hand tightening until I gasped. Do you have any idea what you've done? Let her go. Jake's voice shook. Marcus, this isn't... Shut up. Marcus shoved me toward Jake. This is your mess. Fix it. Jake caught me, and for a moment we were close enough that I could smell his cologne. The same scent I'd once found comforting. Now it just made me sick. I'm sorry, he whispered. Not yet, I said, and drove my knee up hard. As Jake doubled over, I yanked free of his grip. Marcus lunged for me, but I was already moving, putting the heavy desk between us. My purse hit the floor, spilling contents everywhere, including the small canister of pepper spray Isabella had insisted I carry. Don't, Marcus warned, reaching into his jacket. The door burst open. FBI, hands where we can see them. Everything happened at once. Marcus went for his gun. Jake tried to run. I dove behind the desk as shots rang out. Someone screamed, maybe me. Glass shattered. More shouting, heavy footsteps, the metallic sound of handcuffs. Clear. A familiar voice. Sophia, you okay? I stood on shaky legs. Detective Morris helped me up while agents secured Marcus and Jake. Both men were alive, though Marcus's shoulder was bleeding where they'd shot him. Did you get it? I asked Morris. He smiled grimly. Every word? The threat against Isabella, the admission about using you all, it's over. I watched them lead Jake away. He looked small now, defeated. Nothing like the man I'd married. Wait, I called out. He turned, hope flickering in his eyes. I took off my wedding ring, the one I'd kept wearing as part of the operation, and dropped it at his feet. I want a divorce. I'm pretty sure Isabella and Michelle do too. His face crumpled. Sophia, please. Save it for your testimony. Morris cut him off. You'll need it. My phone buzzed. Isabella and Michelle in a group text. Done here. Everyone okay? I looked around the chaos of the hotel room, at the evidence of lives destroyed by greed and manipulation, at the men who thought they could use us and throw us away. Yes, I typed back. We won. Another message popped up, this one from Ellie. Your office, 1 hour. Bring the others. Time to plan the civil suit. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Jake and Marcus had chosen their wives carefully, collecting brilliant, driven women to exploit. They really should have thought that through better. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters, but they parted like water as Isabella, Michelle, and I walked out together. Behind us, the heavy doors closed on Jake's guilty plea, on Marcus's sentencing, on the final chapter of a story that had consumed our lives. I still can't believe he cried, Michelle said, adjusting her suit jacket against the autumn chill. Men like that always cry, Isabella replied, one hand resting on her now prominent belly. But only when they're caught. I stopped at the bottom of the steps, turning to face them both. These women who had started as strangers, united by betrayal, now felt more like family than Jake ever had. Ready for phase 2? I asked. Michelle grinned. Ellie has the paperwork prepared. The civil suit goes forward tomorrow morning, and the foundation launches next week, Isabella added. 3 applications already from women in similar situations. I nodded, thinking of the legal aid foundation we'd created using our settlement money. A way to help other women trapped in webs of financial fraud and manipulation. A way to turn our pain into purpose. Speaking of applications, Michelle pulled out her phone. Remember that tip we got about the investment banker in Miami? 4 wives, all professionals, all being used to launder money through their firms? Send it to Morris, I said. He's been looking for a new case since this one wrapped. A sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Grant stepped out, not in handcuffs now, but as our key witness. His testimony had helped dismantle the entire organization in exchange for a reduced sentence. Ladies, he nodded, actually looking nervous. Everything's set with the offshore accounts. Once they're unfrozen, the money will transfer directly to the foundation. All of it? Isabella's tone could have frozen hell. Every penny, he assured her. I kept my end of the deal. Good, I smiled thinly. Because we kept ours. Your sentence reduction recommendation goes to the judge this afternoon. He hurried past us into the courthouse, still looking over his shoulder. Amazing how quickly powerful men could be reduced to scared boys when faced with the consequences of their actions. You know what I don't understand? Michelle watched him go. Why didn't Jake run? When it all started falling apart, why stay? Because he still thought he could talk his way out, Isabella said. Right until the end, he thought he was the smartest person in the room. No, I said quietly. He stayed because he loved us. All of us. In his twisted way, he really thought he was building something special. That's what made him so dangerous. He believed his own lies. My phone buzzed. A text from Jake sent through his lawyer. I really did love you. Please visit. I deleted it without responding. Some lies we choose to stop believing. Car's here, Isabella announced as a town car pulled up. Dinner at Ellie's? She's bringing that prosecutor friend of hers, the one who specializes in financial crimes. The cute one? Michelle perked up. Count me in. I looked up at the courthouse one last time, remembering how many times I'd climbed these steps as a young lawyer, believing in justice, but never truly understanding its cost. Or its power. Actually, I said, I have a stop to make first. Remember that perfume? The one on Jake's scarf? Isabella touched her neck reflexively. How could I forget? I bought a bottle yesterday. I smiled. Going to wear it to court tomorrow when we file the civil suit. Seems fitting. Michelle laughed. Petty, I love it. Not petty, I corrected. Poetic. Jake chose that scent because it reminded him of power. His power over us. Time to reclaim it. We climbed into the car together. 3 women who had walked through fire and emerged stronger. Not because of Jake's manipulation, but because we'd chosen to fight back. To stand together. To turn victims into warriors. You know, Isabella said as we pulled away from the courthouse, we never did figure out if there were more wives. No, I agreed, thinking of the files still coming in, the patterns we'd learned to recognize, the women still out there waiting to be found. But we will. The car turned toward downtown, toward Ellie's office and our next battle. Behind us, the courthouse disappeared into the gathering dusk, taking with it the last shadows of the women we used to be. We had work to do.